Today, the resurgence of SMOM is best symbolized by the fact that SMOM member William Casey is the current head of the CIA. Casey will be one of the figures who will give the Donovan Award, trophy of the OSS Old Boys, to John McCone, devout Catholic SMOM member and former head of the CIA. To interject here, McCone has also eventually went on to work for Bechtel Corporation. Like another former CIA head, Richard Helms, Bechtel currently holds sway to a considerable extent in the Reagan administration. It's as follows. There are over 1,000 Knights in the U.S. alone. There are many thousands more in Europe and Latin America. About 40 countries acknowledge that the Knights are a sovereign state, and the Knights have their own special passport which these countries accept. Strictly speaking, the current head of the CIA is, in the laws of about 40 nations, a member of a whole different state as well as an American citizen. The information concerning the induction of Alexander Haig into the Knights of Malta comes from an article in the New York Daily News. That article follows. That people in an organization like the Knights of Malta could be seriously prepared to run such brinksmanship games should not be doubted. As part of the belief structure of the Knights of Malta, the notion of a holy crusade for Catholic order is central. Men like William Buckley consider it the highest honor to be allowed to dress up in special black capes with white Maltese crosses and swords as they swear their lives to the defense of the Holy Mother Church. In his book Real Lace, Stephen Birmingham captured some of the aura associated with the Knights. The Knights of Malta comprise what is perhaps the most exclusive club on earth. They are more than the Catholic aristocracy. They are the nobility, the royalty. While the Knights of Columbus are associated with lodge meetings and binges, the Knights of Malta can pick up a telephone and chat with the Pope. The of Reinhard Galen into the Knights of Malta also refers to the fact that Reinhard Galen received the highest award from the Knights of Malta, their highest decoration. Now, for those of you who may be new to Hard Rain, Reinhard Galen was Hitler's chief of intelligence for the Eastern Front during World War II. His organization, Hitler's Eastern Front Intelligence Organization, was called Fremde Heere Ost, or Foreign Armies East. 3 months after the war ends in Europe, 3 months after VE Day, Galen is flown into the United States in the uniform of a 4-star general, and his entire organization is then grafted onto the fledgling CIA and becomes its Department of Russian and Eastern European Affairs. It provides the U.S. with all of its intelligence on Russia and Eastern Europe for more than a decade after the war. Eventually, it also goes on to become the official NATO intelligence organization, and following that, it became the West German CIA, the Bundesnachrichtendienst, which it is to this day. So the Galen organization, 4 incarnations. First as Hitler's Eastern Front Intelligence Organization, then as the CIA's Department of Russian and Eastern European Affairs. Overlapping incarnation 2, it becomes the official NATO intelligence organization, providing NATO with as much as 70% of their intelligence, and eventually the Galen organization becomes the BND, the Bundesnachrichtendienst, the West German CIA. Jesus Angleton was for many years, the CIA's chief of counterintelligence. He also, with Galen, became a member of the Knights of Malta in the immediate post-war period. Of the influence of the Knights of Malta in launching the Cold War and Galen's induction into this organization, Coogan writes as follows. The crusading nature of the Knights led them to virtually launch both the Cold War, the McCarthy witch hunt, and the last great crusade known as the Vietnam War. In preparation for the Cold War, the SMOM gave on November 17, 1948, its Gran Croce al Merito con Placa to none other than Reinhard Galen, a former head of Nazi intelligence and one of the linchpins of the Dulles CIA drive against the Soviet Union. To grasp the full impact of the award, it must also be realized that only 3 other men had gotten a Gran Croce besides Galen. I would interrupt that that makes 4 people in the roughly 1,000-year history of the organization, 4 people including Galen. James Angleton, in his induction into SMOM, Coogan writes as follows. Even more amazing given his history is the fact that on December 27, 1946, SMOM awarded the Croce al Merito di Seconda Classe to James Angleton. Angleton later went on to recommend CIA funding for Luigi Jetta's Catholic Action, and for many years Angleton headed up the CIA's Vatican desk. Okay, so Luigi Jetta, the fellow whose thoughts also that James Angleton was not only the head of the CIA's Vatican desk, but also, as noted in a subsequent Coogan footnote, head of the CIA's Israel desk as well. Make of that what you will. President Kennedy was a Catholic. Unlike his father, Joseph Kennedy, he was not a member of the Knights of Malta, and it generally put a lot of distance between himself and the Catholic rite. Worth noting that Joseph P. Kennedy was the pro-Hitler U.S. ambassador to England during the Roosevelt administration, replaced because of his pro-Hitler sentiments. Apparently, Joe Kennedy was very close to the so-called Clevedon set, a group of powerful British industrialists and aristocrats who preferred the rise of Hitler to any other political events in Europe. Joseph P. Kennedy very close to those people. And Joe Kennedy's kids, however, as pointed out in this passage by Coogan, that is to say John, Robert, and Ted, put a lot of distance between themselves and the Catholic right, none of them members of the Knights of Malta. Cyril Tumanov, a white Russian based in Rome, who is the official historian of the order. Tumanov, by the way, T-O-U-M-A-N-O-F-F. As Tumanov explained to one of this author's sources, Kennedy felt very uncomfortable with his Catholic connections and was indeed a little ashamed by them. So Kennedy sometimes went out of his way to show his independence from his Catholic roots. Such an attitude by Kennedy, in Tumanov's view, was, quote, a mistake, unquote. It is worth noting that although Joseph P. Kennedy was a leading member of SMOM, neither John, Bobby, or Teddy are members.